I will happily admit that I'm not an RPG guy. It's rare for me to enjoy reading. Despite that, Citizen Sleeper is a delightful indie game which exceeded my expectations. It's a streamlined RPG with simple mechanics and scripted story events that left me questioning the decisions I made. This video was written after 12 hours of gameplay and unlocking all of the achievements. Let's get into it. The game has 4 intertwining mechanics: cycles, condition, actions, and energy. Cycles indicate the passage of time upon the eye. Events are driven by the incrementing counter, which the player can choose to engage with or ignore. This creates moments filled with tension and anxiety, which is great. It forces the player to make a decision about the end of the story. Unfortunately, it feels a little underutilized, and I'll dive into that in a moment. As a sleeper, a robot designed with planned obsolescence, your condition is designed to decrease at the end of each cycle. This system is great at forcing the player to make certain choices to survive. Each cycle requires effort from the player to stay alive, and I liked that even if I did nothing, my body will still break down. The condition meter determines the amount of actions available to the player. These actions are not always a positive outcome, but I notice they are skewed positively more often than not, eliminating a lot of anxiety the player may have. Actions have either a positive, neutral, or negative result. More often than not, the results are positive, which almost prevents the player making lots of mistakes on their first playthrough. Whilst I'm happy to get outcomes that progress the story frequently, it did feel that I could make no bad choices, which felt a little disappointing. The energy meter is less involved. Certain results of actions decrease the meter, and if the energy meter is too low, it'll decrease your condition meter. These mechanics initially felt intimidating on my first playthrough, but on the second, I was able to speedrun the game. The limited resources are certainly a great idea, but the path to being self-sustainable makes it easy to negate all of that. By the end of the game, you'll be able to increase the chances of getting the results you want. Is that inherently a bad thing? Absolutely not. But you won't feel any pressure to complete certain quests within the time frame if you're consistently winning. It got to a point I could essentially live forever and maintain my condition meter, almost creating a standstill, which allowed me to prevent ending the game or engaging with story outcomes. There is no central story within Citizen Sleeper. You control the scripted events. I could choose whatever I wanted. I wasn't punished for taking my time, which was humorous on my second playthrough, where I ignored half of the events to get the endings I wanted. If I ignored story events, I could effectively never trigger the timed events. Whilst it's great to engage with the events on my terms, it also meant that those events never happened without my input. Cycle 20 and Cycle 80 can have the same events occurring. This ultimately feels like nothing happens without my input, despite the emphasis that I'm within an environment which will operate without me. The Eye is a varied space station filled with diverse characters. Each segment has varied places to earn money and meet people. The diversity of the characters instills this idea that no person specifically belongs to the Eye. Characters carry the emotional weight imposed by corporate interests and corrupt trade unions. Even if you make the right decisions to get positive results, you'll succumb to the powers beyond yourself. I really enjoyed completing these character-driven quests, even if I failed to get the outcome I wanted. The scripted events have great dialogue and touching moments. Role-playing as a robot with an emulated consciousness is inspired by the replicants from Blade Runner. There are times I feel that your dialogue choices don't really matter. You can choose to be rude or polite, but the scripted narrative will still have the same results effectively, which makes it feel linear. Despite my grips with certain outcomes, I think the endings had more than enough payoff no matter what I chose. The soundtrack encompasses a range of emotions that fill you with this sense of melancholy. It favors simplicity over complexity. I would listen to this whilst I was working during my daily life. The sound design captures this sense of wonder and atmosphere, with minimalist tracks that evoke the brooding experience of day-to-day survival, undertaking odd jobs, making friends, and the loneliness of the human experience. Tonally, this album is a perfect complement to the game, and I have no negatives whatsoever. The visuals align with the minimalist aesthetic. The characters have these vibrant and detailed images that can tell you so much about them before you've had a conversation. Unfortunately, there aren't many variations between the conversations. Images are static, which is fine for me, but it can make the characters feel less human and more like placeholders to represent them. There are no background environments, so all the interiors will have to form in your head. The eye feels the same. The exterior is comprised of rudimentary shapes, allowing the player to fill in the gaps. I do feel that sometimes less is more, as the text is written to compensate for that. The minimalist presentation can feel quite limiting. All stories are told through the text, and the tone doesn't always align with these static images. The UI is great. I do appreciate the simplicity and use of simple shapes. At times, objectives can be unclear, especially on your first playthrough when you're trying to look for specific nodes which share the same shapes and colors. The achievements for this game are very easy to get once you understand how to exploit the save system. If you take a little bit of time, you can get multiple endings in one playthrough by replacing your save files. I used this a lot as it allowed me to save time instead of replaying the entire game for one ending. Most achievements are based on the choices made, typically at the end of the story. If you are an achievement hunter like myself, I do recommend you implement the same practices. It's rare I find myself enjoying RPGs, and it's even rarer that I recommend them. I feel that Citizen Sleeper respected my time, which was immensely appreciated. Everybody has to work to survive, and being able to complete this game under 15 hours prevented the experience overstaying its welcome. The stories had diverse characters who were genuinely interesting. At times it can be hard to empathize with the text on the screen, but thankfully there's never a story I regret pursuing. I can very easily recommend this game for the vibes alone, but also for someone who wants an RPG that doesn't take 80 hours to complete, with soulless characters you won't think about after playing. If you've reached the end of the video, thank you for watching. Don't forget, I will be putting a poll so that you can vote on what game I play next.